Hello everybody, hope you're all doing fantastically well. It's Connor here. It's your Sunday morning. Three things that we learned after Leeds United dispatched Plymouth. I said 3-1 there. Imagine the scenes if we'd have got a third. But yeah, Leeds obviously went into yesterday's game favourites. Plymouth were 19th before proceedings. And listen, it was a good result. A good result for Leeds United. Could it have been more? It certainly could have been. Leeds' ruthlessness in front of goal definitely needs to improve. How clinical we are in front of goal definitely needs to improve. And yeah, the Huddersfield game aside, I think Leeds haven't been as ruthless as we should have been. I think I've mentioned that several times, but it is what it is. Leeds got the win. We go into the international break, top of the form table, 18 points out of the last 7 games, and sitting pretty. Saw Perot get on the score sheet, which is great for him. He needed that. Nice little finish. I thought Perot was decent yesterday. Didn't think Rutter was to the levels that we've seen with Jorginho Rutter. Similarly with Somerville as well. But if we're able to have an off day with those two, and Leeds are still able to win the game, that's a good day for Leeds United. So yeah, loads to discuss. And Leicester dropping points thanks to Sam Greenwood's worldy free kick. He's not going to be playing against us, which is good. A Greenwoodless Middlesbrough in the next 3 to 4 weeks. Obviously Leeds have got Rotherham, they've got Swansea, and they've got Middlesbrough coming up. No easy game there, and it's made a little bit more difficult by the injuries that we now face, and a different left-hand side of the fence, which I know we're not all buzzing about, but we'll get onto that in just a little bit. But guys, the first topic I wanted to start on was Dan James, but before we get going, A Generation Leeds is going to be back on the Patreon account. If you guys want some bonus transfer content, my opinions on what's going forward, head on over to the Patreon account, £4.16 a month, and listen guys, it's probably worth it with the amount of stuff you're going to get over there in the next coming month, especially during this international break. So do so. All proceeds go to the running of the channel. I mean that I can do this more often. So yeah, really appreciate that. But number one, I've titled Dan is the man. Dan James is the man at this moment in time. The consistency was difficult for him in the Premier League because those transitional moments, those counter-attacking moments for Dan James, if we get 2 of them, they wouldn't be successful whatsoever because the defending, the midfields in the Premier League are just a next level to what we see in the Championship. So those transitional moments, Dan was halted quite simply and quite easily. But, Swansea, he was brilliant with Ollie McBurney up top in the Championship in those transitional moments. And he's finding something very, very similar now when it comes to Leeds on the counter-attack and how good we are at curating those moments. And he's thriving in the Championship. And listen, is he going to build his confidence so he's better in the Premier League? Potentially. Is he a Premier League player? I think so. I think he is a Premier League player. I just think there's elements of his game that drastically need to improve. His decision-making has definitely evolved in the Championship, which is something we're all talking about. And hopefully that, combined with a bit of momentum with regards to confidence, is going to see Dan James go from level to level, really. But yeah, he's got a long way to go. I think we know that. I think we know Dan is very competent at this level. But when it comes to that next level, that's where the question is going to be asked. But we don't want to look too far ahead now. Right now, for club and country, Dan James has been exemplary. And in a game yesterday which lacked quality, lacked real efficiency, in front of goal, as I always talk about, in the first 30 minutes, Dan gets the ball and like a plum puts it into nigh on the top corner. Keeper rooted to the spot. It was a lovely finish. Lovely bit of invention from Dan as well. Not a lot of players, and probably him, would have snatched at that normally. He just bent it, finessed it into that corner there. It was a lovely finish. So yeah, my first point is Dan is the man at the minute, and it's great to see, and hopefully that can continue. My second point, everybody, is Willi Yono, and is he going to leave in January? I think he will. Do I want him to leave in January? Absolutely not. I mean, I've mentioned this on a couple of videos, that if we were to get that transfer fee of 25-30 million, then you're looking at it and thinking, flipping heck, yeah, I mean, that's a lot of money. But are we going to get a player of Willi Yono's calibre, to be coming off the bench, to be affecting games? I don't think we will. I really don't think we will. And that's something that, we all have to take into consideration because of the standard of Willi Yono and him coming off the bench. Has he been what we've expected in the Championship? No. But has he been given the exposure in this division? Up against arguably the best team in the division, Ipswich, he ran them ragged in that game at Portman Road. And I just feel with a little bit more exposure in this first team, you're going to see Willi Yono get to those levels again. Has his head been turned? I think he'll be slightly disappointed right now. I think why would you not be? You know, Dan James starting in front of him. He wants to be in the Italian squad. He was starting over Dan James in the Premier League, obviously, because Dan James was loaned out to Fulham. But I think if you were to ask any manager in the Premier League, Willi Yono or Dan James, they'd be picking Willi Yono. And that must be difficult for him, you know, and I know this redemption arc of him with the Leeds United fans hasn't even started yet with regards to what happened in the summer, but I think there's got to be a little bit more exposure for him getting into this starting 11. You know, I do feel with Daniel Farke at points, you know, maybe those proactive subs of bringing Willi on a little bit earlier, the 65th, 70th minute, could be made, you know, and that could turn his head a little bit, and he could maybe think to himself, I'm competing with Dan James here, but when you brought on with 3 minutes to go, it's almost like, well, Daniel Farke's got his man in Dan James, and you can't argue with Farke there because James is proving it. But my point is, Willi can't prove it at the minute. But do we care? Because right now Leeds are on a surge. But when we're talking about ruthlessness in the final third, it's definitely something to consider, in my opinion. But yeah, I don't think I'd be letting Willi Yono go, but I don't think there's going to be any option, to be honest. Another thing we learned yesterday was that Pascal, I think we know from Daniel Farke's messages post-match that he might be out for a substantial period of time. You know, he said he's not going to be back anytime soon, pretty much. And now we know that Sam Byram is going to be out for the Rotherham game. That left-hand side, in my opinion, looked dodgy, especially when Junior Firpo came on. I'm only saying that because of the goal, really. I thought Coops did all right. There was the first 10 minutes where he proactively stepped up, like I've spoken about on this channel, to try and get in front of Morgan Whittaker. Morgan Whittaker just got, you know, just almost stood back, opened his body, received the ball, and got past Liam Cooper, and Rodon had to come over and intervene. That's exactly what I'm talking about with Coops. It's not going to be a consistent run of form. It's not going to be consistent quality whatsoever. He's just not that guy, and has never been that guy, really. But I'm hoping that Rodon can just elevate his performances like Ben White did with him in that Bielsa season. But I don't want a consistent Liam Cooper, if I'm honest with you. However, what I will say is I thought for the majority of that game he was good, but Pascal just brings so much more in terms of bringing the ball out, composure on the ball, and just a cool, calm, collected person there. And I think he works really well in that entire back line, Pascal, and him and Rodon's relationship is very good. We're still going to see Cooper and Rodon's relationship develop over the next, you know, however many weeks, but obviously you want to see Struijk in there. Byram's very disappointing in terms of being going off, and that's why I will be looking at a January edition of a left back. I thought to myself, could we just get by? Could we just get by with a Byram and Firpo, you know, left-hand side? But it's not just the Byram injuries, it's the Firpo injuries as well. It's the Firpo form / quality. I think we know with Firpo he's a left wing back. And we saw yesterday once again when you always see that image of when a team has turned Leeds, Firpo just running back. The camera seems to just zoom in on him every time, just running back to try and get back in position. And it was the same thing yesterday. The left centre back was split. The left back was split. There was a chasm between them, and it was a simple ball. I mean, they were saying on commentary yesterday it's a beautifully crafted goal. It wasn't a beautifully crafted goal whatsoever. The centre back got the ball, and there was a chasm between Liam Cooper and Junior Firpo. That just wouldn't be the case between Pascal and Byram, and hasn't been the case on transitions from other sides this season. And a real chasm between them. Firpo is a left wing back. He's a left wing back. He's not a left back. And when I say that, I mean the onus on him at Betis and Barcelona wasn't to really defend. You know, there was a job there for 3 centre backs to do it. He's not really ever been tasked in doing that. And I think it's a problem for the centre midfielders as well, because Byram's game is very, very different to that of Junior Firpo. So then you've got to figure out who covers. You know, is Junior going to go forward every single time Leeds have the opportunity? Likelihood, yes. Byram can be quite reserved. You know, you might get the right-hand side going forward and Byram just sitting back. You know, you've seen that in these first games, really, whereas Firpo will just go. He'll just go every single time. So now the centre midfielders have got to think, well, maybe I need to step back a little bit. Maybe I don't need to go and I can cover that left-back position if Junior is to go. And that's something they've got to figure out between them. But Junior does bring quality. He does going forward, in my opinion. But at the back, it is just a risk. And it will always be a risk. And I just don't think we need that long-term going forward. But it is what it is at the minute. We're going to have to deal with it. Guys, let me know exactly what you think in the comment section. But as I said, the Patreon is available now. Links in the description below. Well worth it. We've got additional content on there. Shout out to Dave Ford, who's joined this week. Shout out as well to, excuse me, got a bit of a cold, Connor Mulgrew, who joined yesterday. And shout out to you guys as well. Really appreciate you supporting the channel. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe.